I'm Gathanga Ndung'u, a member of Mathare Social Justice Centre and the social justice movement in Kenya, which is more of an umbrella of more than 100 community-based organizations in the country. And being part of Mathare Social Justice, I coordinate participatory action research, where we focus more on people-centered kind of research in our community. So to start with, I think I'll start with a brief history of Mathare. And the reason why Mathare matters in the struggle for our country is because has had this, it's one of the oldest informal settlements in the country, more than 100 years old. And these are informal settlement that has been more of, occupied an area that has been more of illegalized. Yes, we have the biggest informal settlement in Nairobi, in Kenya, which is Kibra, actually the largest in Africa. But then, if you look at the where Mathare sits and where Kibra sits on terms of governance and our relation to the government, Mathare has been more of illegalized. Going back to history, Kibra was more of a gift by the colonial settlers to the Nubians who had helped the King African Rifles, which was the Crown's army in Africa, to fight in different areas during the world wars that were there. But then for Mathare, it was more of an occupation by those soldiers who had fought in different areas for the King African Rifles. But coming back to the country, they found that most of their lands had been taken and converted into the White Highlands in Kenya, which were for British nationals. So by this, Mathare has been illegalized. From 1920s, Mathare was made of this illegal area where the ex-soldiers were organizing in. And you found that in 1950s, Mathare became an area where the Mau Mau, this is the freedom movement in Kenya, or the Kenya Land and Freedom Army, they were organizing for Mathare. And so Mathare became this, bastion of, organizing against the colonial government. And this is where this work was all centered in Mathare. So coming to, we've had around 5 regimes since independence. And we found that in each successive regime, there's been some kind of repression of Mathare informal settlements. Starting from Jomo Kenyatta, who wanted, from the colonial government that, has raised Mathare down nearly 2 times, trying to, eradicate this informal settlement. Came the Kenyatta government. They also wanted to repress Mathare. Came the Moi government, did the same. The other Kibaki government did the same. And then the Uhuru government, in 2013 to 2022, that's when something started happening. In 2013, Uhuru government wanted to crack down on, urban crime. And so most of these repression and repression happened in Mathare and other informal settlement. But there was one that was very much specific to Mathare. And we found that we had a lot of extrajudicial killing and enforced disappearances in Mathare, which have been documented in the Missing Voices, website. So in 2014, due to this, as a result of this is where Mathare Social Justice was born, to fight, this kind of systemized kind of extrajudicial killing and then enforce disappearance that was happening in Mathare, the informal settlement, because it was seen more of a threat, to Nairobi. And so they so like, under that guise, they, invaded Mathare. A lot of youths were killed and, most of them below 25 years. We found people as young as, youths as young as 15 being killed in Mathare. And this is where the journey started. And for us, I think in Mathare, it has been more of a way, there's been these stories of people when youths are killed, people, the youth hang the boots on poles or just on trees. So, as a way of remembering the fallen soldiers, quote unquote. But then in Mathare, I thought, okay, yes, we need to remember those who have died. We could use maybe planting trees, memorial trees. And, Mathare is more of, areas that occupies and the Eastland side of Nairobi. And if you look at Nairobi, there is more like the green side of Nairobi, which is much green and very environmentally beautiful. But then there is the Eastland, which is very, which is been derelicated into zones of, environmental destruction and everything. And this kind of divide, racialized divide, which runs back to the colonial eras, still exists today. And that's why you find that a lot of extrajudicial killing and enforced disappearing have been happening in Mathare. So we started with planting of trees as a way to, of collective memory, building collective memory in the community. And with that, that's how we started the ecological justice movement in Mathare. So for us, we've built ecological justice movement to fight not only is not just mere environmentalism, but more of a tool for us to speak to the broader issues of, systematic poverty that we see in Mathare, be it issues of extrajudicial killing, enforced disappearances, access to water, access to proper healthcare, access to education, all the socioeconomic rights which are enshrined in the 2010 Constitution. That is Article 43 of our Constitution, which speaks, of, the right to socioeconomic rights, but then which are just in papers. So for us, we use ecological justice as a tool, to enter into the broad conversation on these socioeconomic rights. So with that, after that, we did a lot of campaigns on extrajudicial killings. We did a lot of extrajudicial campaign on extrajudicial killings, and we saw that yes, some of them reduced, but then we saw there are a lot of community traction to fight on issues of water, which we now have a lot of campaigns, such as the Derby and domestic workers, where domestic workers fight for their own rights. We saw people, on water justice. There are those on extrajudicial killing. We have a legal empowerment tab where we help the community. We have, participatory action research where we want to bring the community into more of, to be able to do research. We have political accountability campaigns where we try to work, to try provide education for our people. At least they understand how the system works and how we liberate ourselves, because we say there are no liberators. It is the community that liberates itself. So we've been trying, to at least bring that kind of emancipation in the country. Yeah. I think there's been a lot of shifts, also starting from 2023 and 2024. And this started with the election of the fifth president, President Ruto, who was elected in 2022 August. There's a lot of promises, that he gave to the people. And this was more of seen as an outside, because in Kenya, we've been ruled like what was seen as dynasties in Kenya, different, a few families ruling our country over and over. So him coming out of that, from the so and so dynasties, it was seen more of a fresh start for the country. But then our hopes, the hopes of many youths were betrayed by him. And this when he became more of a darling to the IMF, World Bank, and all these other organizations. And so that's and we started seeing a lot of problems in the country. And this brought a lot of suffering to the people. And this brought in new people into our spaces. And one thing that like to explain is that before we had a lot of protests, and we were doing a lot of protests, the March for Lives and everything, but it was more of, more limited to our circles as activists and friends of activists. But then come 24, we find more Kenyans, pouring into the streets. These are ordinary Kenyans. And this was something that's beautiful, being able to get into the streets and, just read a random placard from a random Kenyan and, resonating with it a lot. It made a lot of sense, people, understanding that, yes, whatever we are going through, connecting the taxation that we are going through with institutions such as IMF and the structural adjustment program that they institute in the country, and with all these loans that they've been giving to the government. So from 2024, we've seen a lot of change in that people are now getting into these spaces. We are seeing ordinary Kenyans. We are seeing the, normal, we call them mama mbogas, the people, vegetable vendors, those who push cart, those who are not employed, those who are regarded as unemployable, being able to relate with the struggle, get on the street and demand a better life, demand social justice. Because the song, it has been more of a song, social justice, we are demanding for social justice in the country. It has been more of a song, our song in the our circles. But now seeing that being taken over by ordinary women, by very, young people from school, by, unemployed people, it is more of it was a turning point for us. And we felt that, yes, this is the kind of change that we wanted. The first step, is to getting, a critical mass that believes in the idea that you're trying to push, and that is slowly building. I can't say that, yes, we've reached the critical mass that we need, but then we can see there is some kind of momentum that is building quite, honestly, because the organizing in 2024 was very organic. One thing is, to continue organizing, consistently. And with that, I also mean, to identify our sites of struggles, where the people are. And by that, for us, we've been, before we had a lot of protests, we were organizing outside a beach, it was more of like these circles for activists and people from the left and everything. But then there is something that we understood from 2023 that yes, we needed to take our struggles, somehow we needed to go where the struggles are every day. And that's why we brought a lot of organizing in Mathare. That before, yes, we used to organize a little bit, but then we were more, doing a lot of protest in the CBD and everything. But then we identified that we have to bring, this conversation in our communities. These are where, these struggles are. We need to help the people to understand, that yes, because one thing, the funny thing, the Mathare is more of a very big informal settlement, but then it just separated from Muthaiga with it just a road that separates the two. But then if you look at Muthaiga, is more of the Kenyan diplomatic corps. This is why you find the UN, the UNEP, all these embassies are in Muthaiga. Then just across the road is Mathare. But then helping the people to understand that this kind of rationalized planning is something that has been planned, for them to be where they were, for them to live in a more of, cycles of poverty. It requires a lot of organizing, it requires a lot of political education, and that's what it means to taking, the struggle to where the people are and locating ourselves there, so that we open these spaces so that it did not become, exclusive spaces for activists and those in the left. I think I think that's something that I felt because, it even makes mobilizing during protests very much easy because people relate to the struggle, people understand why they're coming out, and people, they see the larger goal and they're able to connect, whatever is happening to Kenya in other places. So that has been major win for me. And what I'll also say, I think in Kenya, one thing that we did a lot that I feel that we need to advantage of is tech. I know on one hand, tech is being being used by these authoritarian regimes, to crack down on activists. There is the issue of spywares everywhere, but then there is also the organizing that relies on these subversive kind of technologies to organize against these kind of regimes. During our times, we had a lot of apps that we are using, so monitoring each other, taking care of each other. But also, because there's a lot of online surveillance, people being abducted, people being followed and, taken from their homes and everything. So we could leverage the power of tech. And I still ask myself, we are going into the age of AI and, there is ChatGPT now and things are evolving so fast. What can we do? Yeah, because one thing, the capitalist class is really organizing itself very well, they organize themselves from the US to the Western countries to Kenya, and Kenya has been more of this state, very working closely with Israel and everything. So, and also they got the spyware, the Pegasus spyware from the Israeli. So for us to understand that, yes, they are organizing themselves, you also need to find, subversive kind of technologies that we can use for our own, so that at least we overcome the surveillance that comes with the state. And another thing, I think, what we need to do more is identify our individuals capabilities and what we can do, because that came out well, and also what our collective capabilities can be. Last year when we had our protest in 2024, we saw youth artists, tech individuals, people, cartoonists, designers, and everyone was on board, using their skills in every way they could to fuel the movement. So one thing is identified what skill do you have as a young person, or those who are oppressed. How can I use this skill, for the benefit of the people, and how can you use that in our collective organizing, at the organizing level? How can you use these skills, to bring some kind of change in the community as we work toward regional and national level, and also the wider regional area that is East Africa.